Yeah, I mean, no doubt at all. It was all came as a bit of a shock to everyone when Humza Yousaf decided to just basically say last week to the Green Party, we don't want you anymore, we don't need you for our coalition. Clearly, having not even got the most basic grasp of maths, the numbers didn't add up. He didn't have a single MP who was going to back him in a confidence vote that was going to be held this week. Had to fall on his sword. He's gone. What is likely to happen, and what are the implications for the cause that you at Alba and the SNP share most closely, which is the cause for Scottish independence?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that I would say is that just because Humza Yousaf has taken the decision to resign, and it seems that the Greens have, in inverted commas, won their argument on that front. That doesn't necessarily mean that the SNP are out of the woods by any stretch, because don't forget there's about 8 or maybe 9 SNP MSPs who will defy the whip, they have done before, to vote against the gender identity policies that the Greens are so committed to. So whoever takes over, whether it's Kate Forbes, John Swinney or some other individual, that tension between the rebel part of the SNP and the Greens is still in play. Yeah. That hasn't gone away, and I don't think it will change. So it is problematic. I mean, at the moment, because of Humza Yousaf's ill-advised decision last Thursday morning to put on his big boots and stamp his authority on the SNP, and which quickly unravelled over the following days, he has created a very real problem, and that principal problem is that Patrick Harvey, the Green leader, is effectively the de facto First Minister of Scotland. He's got a veto over who the SNP can choose. And in terms of what it means for us as a party and the wider independence movement, well, the support for independence is still north of 50%, and that is not shifting.
Although interestingly, support for an independence referendum is below that. A lot of people are in favour of independence, but they just don't want a referendum on it just now, thanks.
Well, I mean, yeah, they are slightly different issues, but that support is holding firm. The vote and support for the SNP is in freefall, and that's why Labour, that's the principal reason why Labour are enjoying a resurgence. It's not because everybody's enthusiastic about Keir Starmer, but there are some promising signs for us as a party. An opinion poll by UKUV yesterday saw support for the Alba Party climb to 8% in my area, and that would return at least one MSP. And
and of course you've got the PR system for the Scottish Parliament. But it's interesting looking at the polls for a Westminster election, which we're expecting before the end of the year. We're looking at the SNP sort of going down to sort of 10 points below the Labour Party, extraordinarily. I mean, that's a very big change, given that Labour remain. Well, the interesting thing, of course, is Remain will stay in the Union, a Unionist party. But the interesting thing, of course, is Labour has fully signed up, along with the Lib Dems and the Greens and all the lunatics in the SNP of this, to these culture wars, which they keep saying that people like me are starting. No, we're not the ones waging war on women or young gay people and telling them there's something wrong with their bodies and things like that. It is extraordinary how widespread that support is. So whoever is leader, I mean, well, Kate Forbes is not in favour of that. But if John Swinney or others become leaders, they'll have the support of the Greens, Labour and Lib Dem to do a lot of that stuff. We're likely to see more of those measures, aren't we?
Well, I think that there's a number of challenges in there, because what with the caste review and a number of other successes in the so-called gender critical movement, I think identity politics is now out of vogue. And it would be a very brave politician that would go against public opinion in that way. And as I've said, I don't know if the numbers are there. But I'll just go back to one point that you mentioned a moment ago, Julia, around independence, and the referendum. You can only really push for a referendum if you are able to demonstrate competence in government. And that's one of the key problems that the SNP have developed over the time in Nicola Sturgeon, Humza Yousaf's era. where that competence has been sadly lacking. And that is principally why the public don't support a referendum, is because they want public services, so health, education, policing, and all of those things to be working effectively. And if you can't get that right, you're not going to win the argument for better future. And so it's essential that, our commitment and our ask from the First Minister was very straightforward. It was refocus on independence, competence in government, and protect the rights of women and girls.
But also, wasn't Alex Salmond kind of hoping that there might be a roll back for him, some sort of route back? And at the end of the day, a lot of this fell down, whatever dealings there were going to be with Ash Regan, your only Scottish Parliament member for Alba, that actually, it's all about Alex and his ego. I'm a big fan of Alex Salmond, but a lot of it is about Alex wanting to be a power broker, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's true, and certainly that's not my take on Alex's motivation. Alex's motivation is and always has been the cause of Scottish independence. And, I've always said this, there's two principal types of people that I've met in politics. People who want to do important things and people who want to feel important. And Alex Salmond is absolutely 100% the first. He wants to do important things.
Okay.
But the SNP is filled with people who just want to feel important.
Okay.